What we're showing here is the Willis 1632-3A surface grinder, and this is the way it's going to arrive at your facility. We're going to show how to get things unpacked, hooked up, and the operation of the machine for your reference. This is going to be virtually identical to our 1224-3A model. It's just a little bit smaller, but the controls and the setup is pretty much identical. You will see all three of the axes are blocked and locked into position for shipping. Here you can see a wooden block here holding down the wheel. Then you have a bracket here you're going to have to remove. You have another bracket around on this side, which you have to remove. And we'll run around the machine and look for any other brackets we got. We got one right there. And we have one under there, which is locking the table in place. This is the hydraulic tank right here, which is going to run your table back and forth, and it also runs the down feed. This is the paper filter coolant system right here. And on the back of the skid, here you have some guarding, which fits in the front of the table to help keep the coolant splash down. And this piece right here is part of the coolant system for draining the coolant back into the coolant tank. These are the hydraulic lines. They're going to hook up to the hydraulic tank. Here's your main electrical box. And these two cardboard boxes are filled with accessories for the machine, the manuals, the wheel, leveling pads, and things like that. When considering the location of your new grinder, it is very important to find a single piece, very solid piece of concrete. And you also want to make sure to have a qualified, insured rigger help with the removal of the machine from the skid. You'll want to make sure you have at least 1 meter of clear space all around the outside of the machine, depending on where you place it. And please take into account the maximum travels of the machine to make sure you still have 1 meter away from the maximum travels. This is a very important safety precaution and also is very helpful with part loading and unloading, cleaning, and maintenance. As you can see here, we've done a little bit of offloading of the skid to put some components together for test operation of the machine. Machine is still on the skid, but there you can see the hydraulic tank that we have hooked up for test operation. That does go on this back side of the machine. And your coolant will generally be in this location also. The hoses and the clamps are all different sized, and you can't really put them in the wrong spot. Just be careful when you're unpacking to not lose anything, and keep everything off to the side when you're unpacking, when you're putting the machine together. The operation manual can be very helpful and gives a very good step-by-step process for getting the machine set up. Also, for items such as the hoses and the electric lines, you can see all the hoses are well marked, and the locations where they hook up to are also well marked on the hydraulic tank, and it's the same for the coolant pump. So again, you would have to try hard to hook them up to the wrong locations. Same thing for the wiring. Your main 3 hot leads will go right here, and then the rest of your accessories, hydraulic tank, coolant, and all that will go on the clearly marked selections here down on that terminal strip. And you can see the wires from the hydraulic tank match up with the wires on the terminal strip, and that empty one is where the coolant tank will be wired. Once everything is wired up, the first thing you want to do is check spindle rotation to make sure that you got the machine phased properly. One of the best ways to do that, you come over to the machine, release the e-stop, turn on the main power. Now this is the control for the spindle right here. You can see the wheel right there. Turn that on, that's in manual mode. Hit it. And turn it off. And it may take a little while to see it, but make sure it's spinning in the correct direction, which it is. Just for double checking, there is also a directional arrow on the hydraulic motor and same with the coolant pump. But as long as you connected all the wires with the right numbers and letters, everything should be phased correctly. Your hydraulic tank will arrive empty. The recommended hydraulic oil is in the manual, and you want to make sure to use clean oil. Factory suggests after 3 months of use to replace the oil, and after that you can be done yearly. Your automatic lubrication pump right there should come with some oil in it, but you will want to keep an eye on that. It does have a low level alarm also, and it will let everybody know when it's when it's low on oil. It's kind of a loud noise it makes. That's very important to use good clean oil in that. Again, the manual has a recommended oil type, and that's very important for the lubricating of the ways and the lead screws. Next up on the checklist is we'll want to turn on the hydraulic pump and check the table movement. Here you want to make sure that this lever, which that supplies the hydraulic power to the table, want to make sure that's in the stop or off position before we get started. And this is the control for the hydraulic system. This right here will turn it on, and that's manual position. This is for the auto cycles. And it's recommended to let the hydraulic system run for a little while, especially on a new machine, just to make sure everything is loaded up. And you also want to make sure the machine has some time for the lube pump to get all the lube lines filled. They do have check valves in the lube line, so it shouldn't drain back down, but a little warm up is never a bad thing. You can see here, these are the stops for the table, and you can slide these any which way. That's going to be a very short table movement, and that's out to the maximum table movement. You want to double check, make sure all the brackets are off and everything is clear. No one is around the machine. We've had the hydraulic pump running for a little while. Now let's get the table moving a little bit. And this controls how fast you want it to go, depending on the application. You're going to see a little rocking back and forth here because obviously the skid is not so stable. That's a good example of why you want a very stable, solid hydraulic foundation. And now we'll shut her down. I did skip over this earlier, but I do want to mention it now. When your rigger is putting the machine in place, you will see the machine does come with leveling pads and bolts. It's going to most likely be in one of these two boxes. And you want to make sure that the rigger has these before setting the machine down. And the locations where the machine is secured to the skid, those are the locations where leveling bolts go, and they go down onto pads. It is also very critical that the machine is leveled very precisely in both the longitudinal and cross axis. You can do this with the machine running or with the machine not running. I kind of like it after the machine's been running for a little while and everything's kind of warmed up and lubricated, but you can manually move the axes all different locations. And there is a good method for doing this in the operator's manual also. Now a little explanation on the control panel. This is the control for the spindle. As you can see, you can set it, that's manual operation, off. That's for the automatic cycles. This is the hydraulic system we went over. This is in manual mode. This will shut off when it's part of the automatic cycle. This is the flood coolant, same thing. That's what would be on manual. It'd be part of the auto cycle. This little box here is for the cross feed. This is in manual setting, so you can move it. See, move it out, back. This again, this would put it in that auto cycle. This is a little rheostat here to control how much it'll move in each auto cycle. We'll go over that a little bit later. This is the controller for the magnetic chuck. Right now the power is off. You'll see we just have a random bar up here now. Easily move, This is for how strong you want the magnetism to be and also how quick you want the demag cycle to go. Now you're at full mag. And there's no moving that. Now the demag cycle. Now that'll lift right off. Finishing up with the control panel here. This is the setting here, whether you want to do regular surface grinder or plunge grinder, which will disable the crossfeed. This right here is control for your vertical axis. This is manual mode. We'll push this. Wheel head up and down. And similar to the others, this is for manual movement. And this is part of the, you have it on that setting for the auto cycles. And this is your down feed counter right here. Now shortly we're going to go into the automatic modes of the machine. Things you will have to be aware of depending on the size of your workpiece. Of course, these stops here on the table will control how far your the stroke of the table is depending on your workpiece size, because you don't want to be grinding air. And same thing for the cross slide. Those limit switches and dogs right there are used to determine how far in and out you want the saddle to move depending on how wide your part is. Alright, now we're going to run through a brief example of running the machine in 3-axis automatic mode. Again, this is your spindle, your hydraulic tank, your coolant, crossfeed, mag chuck, whether you're going to be surface grinding or plunge grinding. That's plunge grinding, surface grinding. And this is control for the wheel up and down. All right, we're going to go into automatic on all these. Let's say we have our workpiece up on the chuck. And we'll want to energize the chuck to make sure that that workpiece is not going anywhere. We'll be in surface grinding mode. Want the spindle on automatic. You will see here we have a down feed counter where you set how many times you want the down feed to go down. We're just going to set it at 3 because that'll be fairly quick. Now the down feed itself, the down feed gearbox, has a little dial here. You have 5 different down feed rates from 1 1/4 thou down to 2 1/2 tenths. We have it set right now at 1/1000th of an inch per pass, per down feed. And we've got it set to do this 3 times, which 3 times 1/1000th, it's going to go down 3/1000ths. And we have, this is the spark out. We have it set for 0 spark out passes now, but you can set it 1 or 2 spark out passes. Now we're going to start turning things on and get the cycle running. All right, we got the hydraulic on. Now we'll get the cross feed going. You can manually get the wheel down to the workpiece close, but you want to get, once everything's running, and we'll get the spindle going. We don't have, you can see we don't have a wheel in here, but it's just a simulation. Now we can get the cross feed going. Make sure everything is set up good. This rheostat here controls your cross feed movement. Zoom out a bit here. You can see when we turn this down to 0, you're actually not going to move at all. And we'll start turning up a little bit. And so you can adjust that. You can make some pretty big moves. It just depends on what you got going on, what parts you got going on, how big your part is. All right. And the way that cross feed works, you can see here when the limit switch is hit, that's when it reverses. Now we have not engaged the down feed at all yet. This is just the saddle moving back and forth and the table moving back and forth. Now if you're happy and you know it, now it's time to start engaging the down feed. And we'll come up here when we're at the end of the stroke, we're ready to down feed. We'll engage that. Now you can kind of see it all work together. We just had our first down feed, and that counted. You see the counter went to 1. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here to kind of show it all. There you can see we hit the 1. Down feed went down, moving the other direction. Now when we get to the back of the stroke, it's going to do the 3rd pass. You can see it made the 3rd pass. Now it's going to make the full stroke up to the other end of the saddle movement, and then the head is going to go part. And that's the full surface grind mode. And you will notice that everything shuts off. All right, now we're going to show a plunge feed auto cycle. We're going to use, so we'll set it up, auto. Get everything to auto. I'm going to get the mag chuck fired up. This is the plunge. So you're going to be doing a part that is smaller width than the 1.5 wide wheel. And we'll get auto cycle here. We're going to set the spark out to 2 passes. Now we should be good. We'll get the table fired up. Now when you got everything adjusted with your height, now you'll be ready. We have it set for 3 passes at that 1/1000th down feed per pass. And we'll start it up. Now we'll have the 2 spark out passes. And there you go. That's the general operation of the machine. There's obviously a lot more to do with the machine. The manual is quite good, gives very good instructions, gives lots of information on different grinding wheels for different materials, feeds and speeds, how to balance the wheel, how to mount the wheel, all that good stuff. So we recommend highly to take a good look at the manual and follow that pretty closely. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to call into Willis. Or send us an email. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks again for your purchase.